Good morning, you beautiful English learners. It has been a freaking hot minute. It has been an age since I've been here. And I know, I do tend to disappear from time to time. I do tend to be inconsistent with my content production, at least for the podcast. Telegram, I'm fairly consistent, but with the podcast, it's hit and miss sometimes. But this time I actually have a genuine excuse for not being here. So the aim of this podcast is to just fill you in on some shit that went down, I guess. Some bad things that happened to me, and to just reaffirm how freaking lucky I am. I may be the luckiest person I know. I honestly do not know anyone else who has more luck than me. And that is an interesting way to think about it, because luck and being lucky, it's very interpretive, right? Some people might say I'm unlucky, but the fact that I'm still here makes me feel, on the contrary, makes me feel incredibly lucky. So, let's just get straight to it. I had surgery not that long ago. I had an unplanned surgery. And an unplanned surgery is always something a little serious, as you can imagine. So, I'll give you some key dates. June 13th. June 13th it all began. And it started with stomach pains. So, I woke up on June 13th and I had a pain in my stomach. And I was like, okay, that's new. Now, for a couple of days before that, I was coughing quite a bit with what I believed was a flu or a cold. A bunch of my students in the college got sick. A bunch of my colleagues got sick. I got sick. My wife got sick. So, I figured, okay, my stomach pains are as a result of me coughing so much and straining the abdominal muscles. So I put down my stomach pain to the flu. Put down to. That's a great phrase. Write that down. If you put something down to something, you're laying blame on it. It's kind of like a cause and effect phrase. I put my stomach pains down to me coughing too much. Due to me coughing too much, I had stomach pains. That's what I believed anyways. So, because, I on June 13th, I had these stomach pains, I went to work, I did my job, I went home, and for that weekend, I just lay low on the couch. That's all I did. I didn't want to do much, and I was thinking, I have a vacation coming up. I was meant to have a vacation 2 weeks later, and I was like, well, I want to get better for that. I want to be healthy. So the weekend of like June 14th, 15th, 16th, I'm just going to hang out at home. I'm not going to do much. I'm going to lay on the couch. And I did. I lay on the couch. I didn't smoke. I didn't drink. I didn't do anything bad. And I was starting to get better. I felt better. So Monday comes around, and that's June 17th. And I wake up, and yeah, there's still some pain there, but it's not unbearable. I have a high tolerance for pain. A tolerance for pain. Do you have a high or low tolerance for pain? My name is Ronan, and I believe I have a very high tolerance for pain. That means that I can take a lot of pain, and that pain doesn't bother me too much. I have experience with different types of pain, and it takes a lot for me to want to take painkillers. I don't really like, or I don't really enjoy taking painkillers, I'll be honest. I really think they're great when people use them, but people tend to overuse them. And so due to my high tolerance for pain, due to my not wanting to become addicted to painkillers, I tend to avoid taking painkillers. So I had this pain in my stomach. I put it down to the coughing, the excessive coughing. On the Monday, I woke up with reduced stomach pain, and I was like, okay, this is getting good. It's getting better. On the Monday night, my wife and I went for a meal in downtown Kelowna. And what I remember about it was, we got food, but my appetite wasn't great. I didn't have a large appetite. And one thing that was weird, I couldn't even finish a beer. That really should have made me realize this was worse than it was. I had a beer in front of me, and I was nursing it to nurse. I was nursing the beer. When you nurse a beer or nurse a drink, you drink it very slowly. You do not drink it fast. You kind of like elongate how long you have it for. And so I was nursing the beer, and I even let my wife finish it. And that was very strange for me. I'm usually able to drink a beer, no problem. And this is the thing about your health, folks. If something out of the ordinary is happening, you should probably get it looked at. And this was out of the ordinary. Now, I understand hindsight is 2020. Hindsight is 2020. Write that down. That's a very important phrase. Hindsight is when you look back in the past. And 2020 is perfect vision. And yeah, when I look back in the past, it's obvious. But at the time, it's never obvious. So hindsight is 2020. So my wife finished the beer, we went home, and that's on the Monday. So that's Monday, June 17th. June 18th, June 19th roll around, and I'm still feeling a little worse for wear, you might say. I'm starting to feel the stomach pains. Another thing that I should mention, and it is going to come up a few times in this podcast, bowel movements. So this podcast is all about healthcare, okay? And bowel movements are incredibly important. Incredibly important. It's actually one of the first questions they ask you whenever you go to a doctor or a hospital. How's your bowel movements? Whether they're good or bad, are you having any? And I had reduced bowel movements, I'm not going to lie. That should have been another alarm bell for me. So, on June 18th, my wife was going on vacation. So my wife was booked in to an Airbnb in the middle of nowhere, British Columbia, and she was going to do some writing and do a lot of reading. It was actually a beautiful Airbnb on a farm. And she had wanted to take a solo break for quite a while. And obviously I encouraged her. I really wanted her to go away, to leave town, and to just enjoy herself by herself. And this is something that people should do more often, in my opinion, is take solo breaks or solo holidays. So my wife is out of town at this stage. I take the bus to work on June 19th. Now, on June 19th, I'm in work. And the stomach pains are getting worse. And that's when I started to get a little more concerned. And I'm thinking, I've had these pains for 6 days now. I thought they would have gone away by themselves. I get out my phone and I call my doctor to try book an appointment. Now, in BC, we have family doctors, we have urgent care, and we have emergency department. They're like the and walk-in clinics. They're like the 4 places you can go to see a medical professional. In BC, there's also a severe shortage of healthcare workers and a severe shortage of family doctors. So I call my family doctor and I try to book an appointment. But the only appointment available is for Tuesday week, like Tuesday 25th of June, and it's only a phone call. And this is what really bothers me about BC and Canadian free healthcare. You need to plan when you're going to get sick. Now, let's be honest. We never plan to get sick, right? So I had to call my doctor. I had to try book an appointment, but the only appointment available was for a week later. Well, that's not much good because I'm having the pains now. And I spoke to the receptionist. And I was on the phone and she says, well, if you're having pain, you should go get it checked. Either go to urgent care or go to emergency. Urgent care is like similar to a hospital. It's like a small building where they have medical professionals and they see you for not so severe cases. Now, here's the thing about me. I have a complicated medical history. A very complicated medical history. And I really should have listened to my body sooner than this, especially considering my previous complicated medical history. What is your medical history? Do you have a complicated medical history or do you have a standard medical history? Do you have any illnesses running in the family? Do you have a family history of anything? These are all questions that you should know the answer to immediately. And due to my complicated medical history, I decided to go straight to hospital. So I'm at work, I call my boss, I inform my boss what's happening, I meet her in the hallway and I say, I gotta go to hospital, and she's like, go, absolutely, healthcare is number one, I'll take your class. Guys, I have a great boss. I just gotta say that right now. I have one of the best bosses I could ever imagine having. So my boss let me go. I go down, I hop on the bus at the college, and it brings me straight to hospital. I didn't want to call an ambulance. Can you imagine I called an ambulance? Hey, what's the problem? Oh, I have a sore tummy. I have a stomach ache. Again, hindsight, 2020, definitely should have called a fucking ambulance. I present myself to hospital on June 19th. Now remember, my wife is out of town, so it's just me in town. My stomach pains are getting worse. When you go to hospital, you first go to an area called triage. Triage is an area where they determine how bad you are. And you first register, and then you see a nurse in triage. And the nurse is going to ask you a bunch of different questions. Now, once I'm called in to see the nurse, I sit down, I hold out my hand because they're going to place a sensor on my finger to determine my oxygen levels, my heart rate. They're going to check my blood pressure. I give them my medical card, and then they ask me some questions. And the questions are generally, when did you last eat or drink? What pain are you feeling? Where is the pain? And on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad is the pain? I really hate that question because it's very interpretive. And so I explained my symptoms, I explained the situation, I explained how I had these pains for about 6 days already. And then the nurse says, okay, you need to go down the hallway, turn right, go through the doors and take a seat. And that is what triage is, TRIAGE. Depending on your symptoms, they'll either send you down one hallway or down another hallway. Everyone is different. So I go through the doors, I go down the hallway, and I'm in another waiting area. Now, here's the thing about hospitals, folks. You got to be ready to wait. You'll get seen eventually, but you really, really, really need to be in it for the long haul. And I was, because before I left the college, I went straight to the library and grabbed the book. I don't even know. I don't remember looking for a book. I just saw a book. It was a novel, and I took it, and I went to hospital because, like I said, I have a complicated medical history. I know how hospitals work. I know it's going to take a very long time, and I was not going to hospital without having a good book to read. So I sit down in this other area, I'm reading my book, and I hear my name, and I get talking to another nurse. The nurse asks me a couple of questions and puts an IV in my arm, an IV. And an IV is connected to your vein, and it just allows medical staff to put drugs into you quicker instead of having to find a vein each time. It's just temporarily there, I guess. I then meet a doctor. Well, actually, I met a student doctor. So this is a trainee hospital as well, where you have university students. And I meet a trainee doctor who's very friendly. And I'm lying on the bed, and they ask me a couple of questions, and they push down on my stomach a few times. Like, does it hurt here? Does it hurt here? Does it hurt here? Does it hurt here? And I'm like, oh yeah, that hurts. You know, when they're pushing down on different areas of my stomach. Then the doctor comes in, and the trainee doctor informs the doctor of some things, and the doctor asks me more or less the same questions. The doctor then says, you've had these pains for a week. Okay, that's interesting. Are they getting worse? I'm like, well, I'm here because they are getting worse, doctor. And long story short, the doctor says, I'll go for a CT scan. A CT scan. Now, before I go for a CT scan, I also had my bloods taken. My bloods. And that is just when a nurse will take a couple of vials of blood for different reasons. So, the doctor sends me for a CT scan. I go down to the area. I sit in the waiting area. Again, I read my book. Like I said, folks, there's a lot of waiting in hospitals. All right, just get used to it. There's a whole bunch. I get my CT scan. Now, I don't know if you've ever had a CT scan. It's very straightforward. You lie down on a bed. The machine or the bed moves into a big circular machine, and they take pictures of your insides. But they also have to inject you with a dye or a chemical or something like that. And that is why the IV is in my arm. So the doctor pumps me full of drugs. I go into this machine, and then the doctor says, okay, go back to the waiting area. So I walk back and I sit down, and guess what? I'm reading my book again. And when I'm sitting there, I'm looking around. And this is the thing about hospitals. Everyone is the same. Everyone is equal. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter how much money you have or anything like that. In BC, you're all the same. There's no private healthcare here. So you have to go public. And it was interesting to see just the different demographics of people. You had young people, you had old people, you had very old people, you had families, you had translators there, you had some kids translating for the parents. That is a common thing nowadays too. You know, with the rise of migration, with the rise of newcomers to Canada, a lot of kids have to be translators for the parents. And it's not ideal. It's not fair for the children, obviously. Obviously, they're going to do it because they love their parents and the parents are learning English. But when it comes to healthcare, I do feel so sorry. They do have translators and interpreters available, but again, there might be a shortage of them because there's just such an influx of people to hospitals these days. So I'm sitting down, I'm reading my book, and it could be like an hour later, I hear my name being called. And so then I go back and I talk to the doctor. And that's where the doctor brings me into a room by myself. And the trainee doctor is also there. And the doctor informs me that, yes, I have an appendicitis. 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 And that is related to your appendix. Your appendix are like a muscle or an organ in your body that, well, we don't really know what they do. It's kind of interesting. It's 2024 and we still have no idea what these things do. And the doctor tells me that yes, there is absolutely inflammation going on inside of you. And I got a little concerned. That's when I started to get worried. But he says there's no point in doing surgery. And he does consult the surgeon. And the surgeon who was there said the same thing. And I'm wondering why not? Well, Ronan, you've had the pain for a week, which makes us believe your appendix has not ruptured. To rupture. Appendix are like these things in your body that we don't need, that are very dangerous because if they rupture inside of you, that would be like to explode inside of you. And so my appendix, according to the doctors, had not ruptured, but it was infected. So my appendix was infected. I had appendicitis, and antibiotics are the best way to treat it. Antibiotics or surgery to remove them. So, according to the surgeon, I did not need surgery. According to the doctor, I did not need surgery. But I did need antibiotics. Now, because I'm in the hospital, and because it was getting late, I got an IV antibiotic, which is an antibiotic that goes straight into the bloodstream. It's pretty quick, and you can feel it. And so I go back out in the waiting area. I sit down. I have a drip beside me. A drip. A drip is the bag of liquid connected to your arm. You've probably seen it in the movies. You've probably seen it if you've ever been to a hospital. And there's fluids being injected into a person. And so I had a drip of antibiotics. Once that drip was over, I was allowed to go home. I got the green light to go home. I'll be honest, I didn't feel confident. I did not feel confident about going home. I was quite concerned. And the doctor said, if it gets worse, come back. And this is about 9 p.m. at night. And, I was on the phone to my wife and I told her the situation. And she said, God, that's shit, Ronan. I hope you're okay. Should I come home? And I'm like, no, do not come home. You stay there. Look, you're on vacation. Enjoy it. It's only a stomach pain. I have appendicitis. I've been to hospital. Clearly I'm okay. If it was really bad, they would have given me surgery. I go to bed and I'm hoping I'll wake up tomorrow on June 20th thinking I'll be okay. That night, I hardly slept. I didn't sleep a wink. There's a good idiom. I did not sleep a wink. W-I-N-K. The pain in my stomach was getting worse. And I'm getting nervous. And I'm getting worried. And, I'm contemplating, do I go back to hospital or not? I slept like a tiny bit. And I woke up after about, I'd say, 1 hour sleep. And I tried to sit up and I was like, oh, that hurt. That really hurt. And then I got a wave of pain. Like a really bad cramp or a contraction. And that's when alarm bells really started to ring in my head. And that's when I called my boss and I said, hey boss, I'm not going to be at work today. I really need to go back to hospital ASAP. And because I'm an idiot, I walked to hospital. Again, I know I should have called a freaking ambulance. The hospital is like a 10-minute walk. I was like, screw it, I'll walk down to hospital. I'll be okay. Honestly, I mean, I really should have been smarter. You know, I feel I dropped the ball on this one. So I walk to hospital. I present myself to the hospital on June 20th. I go through triage again. I talk to the doctor, a different doctor. They give me another CT scan. The doctor tells me, same result, it's inflamed. It is an appendicitis. And then the doctor starts to press on my stomach. And let me tell you, this hurt so much more than yesterday. And the doctor's like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how bad is your pain? And I'm like, it's like a 5, maybe a 6 at times. And then he pushed down on the right side of my stomach and I just went, like that's the noise I made. I took a deep breath in. I couldn't scream. It was so painful. And I jumped up and I was like, oh God. Like it was one of the most excruciating things I've had. And like I said, I have a complicated medical history. I've experienced a lot of pain, physical pain in my life. But this really, really hurt. So once the doctor pressed down on me and saw my reaction, I could see he felt this might be something worse. He then decides to get a surgery consult. I sit out in the waiting area again until the surgeon consult can see me. So I start reading my book again. Like I said, folks, always bring a book to hospital. At this stage, I don't really have a fever or a temperature, but I'm starting to get a little bit cold or a little bit hot. It's like starting. And you know, I'm running on very low sleep right now. I haven't eaten food. I haven't drank. Oh, and by the way, back to the bowel situation, absolutely no movements. No movements in the bowel area. That is very concerning. Eventually, I hear my name and there's a surgeon. Now, have you ever seen the TV show Scrubs? I love that TV show. If you haven't watched Scrubs, I'd highly recommend that you do. It is hilarious. It's hilarious, it's well written, and it's very serious at times, but it's brilliant. And it is a comedy based in a hospital. And one of the things that is done in Scrubs is like how the surgeons are all these cool dudes and the doctors are a bunch of nerds. And the surgeons all walk around with bandanas. And guess what? The surgeon I was meeting was a cool dude with a bandana. And I did laugh to myself because I was thinking this is exactly like Scrubs. I got talking to the surgeon. And let me tell you, nicest person I've ever met. One of the nicest people. This surgeon had a magic power to help a person relax. This person had a magic power that brought comfort, serenity, and calmness to the room. And he was so soft-spoken, so gentle, I really felt in safe hands. He asks me a couple of questions, he presses on my stomach, he sees the pain, and he says, right, I'm going to talk to the head surgeon and see what they think. And so they send my scan to the head surgeon and he disappears for a while. So at this point I know it's getting serious because he's talking to the head surgeon. You know, you don't talk to the head surgeon unless it's something big. Now, one thing they informed me about this was surgery could be an option, but for me, it's complicated. And like I said, I have a complicated medical history. So my name is Ronan, and I take anticoagulants. Anticoagulants are a drug that make your blood thin, essentially. It makes your blood not clot. So when I was 18 and when I was 20, I had blood clots. Really, really, really bad blood clots. A blood clot is a clump or a lump of blood that sticks together in your body. Obviously, very, very dangerous. it can block your veins, and that means blood is not going to go to a certain area. That is called deep vein thrombosis, DVT for short. So I had a DVT in my calf muscle. Your calf muscle is at your lower leg, just above your foot, below your knee, on the back. On the front, you have the shin bone, and behind it, you have the calf muscle. And in my calf muscle, when I was 18 and when I was 20, I had a blood clot. I also had a pulmonary embolism, and that is when the blood clot travels throughout your veins. And for me, I had a pulmonary embolism, or PE for short, in my lungs, my shoulders, and my thigh. So, remember I said how I was lucky? That's an example of me being lucky. I've had blood clots twice in my life, and both times I survived. Both times I was misdiagnosed, and both times the doctors said, you shouldn't be alive, you're incredibly lucky. It is very rare for an 18-year-old or a 20-year-old to get blood clots. When I had blood clots when I was 18, I played a full rugby game without realizing I actually had blood clots. So I had blood clots in my body, and I still was able to do sport. I was still able to run and swim until I wasn't. And I went to hospital a couple of times. They sent me home telling me it was something else, something different. I went camping in pain, and eventually it got to the stage where the pain was so bad I would take 5 steps, fall to the ground and cry with the pain in my calf and my lungs. And that's when they realized that it wasn't just a pulled muscle or asthma, and they realized it was much more serious. Long story short, I got diagnosed with blood clots late. The second time it happened, very similar. Well, no, the second time it happened, I was more aware. I felt a pain in my lungs, and I immediately went to hospital because that pain is unique. And the only time you feel that pain is when you have a clot. And yes, I had blood clots. So since the second time, I have been on a drug called warfarin or Coumadin, and it's a blood thinner. Problem is, if you need to get surgery, you can't have thin blood. You really, really can't. Your blood needs to be thick, because otherwise you're going to bleed a lot and you're going to need a lot of transfusions. So that was one major complication. A huge complication, actually. Anyways, I sit down in a waiting area and I got a reclining seat, thankfully. There was one reclining seat in the waiting area, and I was watching it because there was a woman on it. And here's the thing about waiting areas, everyone's like looking for the good chair. And I'm looking around at all the different people there, and I've been there the longest. Let me tell you this right now. I have been there the longest. I have been in the hospital since like 7 a.m. that morning, and it's now about 2 or 3 p.m. I've been on the phone to my wife. I informed her about everything. I'm like, look, I'll let you know if I'm getting surgery, okay? But no need to come home yet. No need to come home yet. And, if I'm getting surgery, yeah, she's definitely going to come home, obviously. So this is June 20th, remember. And eventually, that recliner, the one reclining chair in the waiting area becomes free, and I snagged it. S-N-A-G, to snag. I snagged that reclining chair. I saw an old man eyeing it up. I saw a young kid eyeing it up. And I was thinking, no fucking way, that's my chair. I've been here all fucking day. I'm going to sit there. It's right beside a socket or like an outlet or a plug so I can charge my phone. And I'm just thinking, that's my fucking chair, and I will knock you out if you try get it. So the woman gets up, goes talk to a nurse. I see she's leaving, and I get that chair. I snagged it. And those motherfuckers that were eyeing the chair up, well, tough shit, motherfuckers. Move faster. That's my chair. To eye something up. When you eye something up, you're like looking at it, and you really want it. You're eyeing a chair up, you're eyeing a person up or something like that, and you're looking at them, and you're thinking, I want that. So they were eyeing up the chair. I was eyeing up the chair, but I snagged it. I'm in the chair for quite a while, and eventually I doze off, and it was really nice. I needed a little bit of sleep. It wasn't a great sleep, but at this stage, the pains are getting worse. The doctors offered me painkillers, and I refused. And the reason I refused was for a few. Like, one, I'm not a big fan of painkillers. Two, they'll give me painkillers, and in an hour they're going to ask me how I'm feeling, and of course it's going to be better because the drugs will have kicked in to kick in. When drugs kick in, it means they start, or, the effects are now being felt. And so I knew if I took these drugs that they would eventually ask me how I'm doing, and I would just have to say, oh, the pain is gone. Of course it's gone. I'm on painkillers. I'm in my recliner. The pains are getting worse, and they're coming in waves now. Waves of pain. And it's kind of like, you feel the wave coming, and once I feel the wave starting, I know it's going to hurt. And I can describe it like a sharp pain in my stomach, and then it would subside. And about 40 minutes later, it happens again. And about like every 45 minutes, I would get these waves of pain. I'm looking around the waiting room, and I do see a surgeon, and he walks over to me, and he just says, Ronan, how would you like to not have your appendix? That's what he said. And I look at him, I say, I think that's a great idea. And I'm like, I felt such relief, folks. I felt so goddamn relieved. Like, I felt I was being listened to. I felt we were going in the right direction. I felt finally I'm going to get treated for this issue. This bad thing that's happening inside of me. And I'm so glad I went back to hospital. I'm a fool for not going sooner, but it is what it is. Hindsight is 20/20. And he says, okay, we'll get you on a gurney, and then we will start prepping you for surgery. But the first thing we need to do is give you vitamin K. Now, vitamin K is a reversal agent for the drug I take. So like I said, I take anticoagulants. They cannot cut me open yet because my blood is too thin. So they give me vitamin K, which will make my blood thick. It reverses the effects of the anticoagulant. Also, because I'm getting surgery, I can't eat. Now, I haven't eaten for maybe 12, 13, 18 hours at this stage, and I haven't had a drink of water either. That is one of the worst things about hospital. You're not allowed water, you're not allowed food or anything. But the one good thing is I had an IV, so they were able to give me fluids through the IV. Now, it's not very satisfying, but it does keep you alive and keep you hydrated. But I really wanted a glass of water. I really, really wanted a glass of water, or 7-Up or something like that. 7-Up. That's an important one. That's a cultural thing, maybe. In Ireland, if you're sick, you get 7-Up. And in Ireland, if you're sick, you drink flat 7-Up. So it's like you open the 7-Up and you let all the fizz leave, and then you drink what's left. It sounds weird, but it's definitely an Irish thing. Like 100% an Irish thing. And ask anyone who lives in Ireland or has grown up in Ireland or knows Irish people, flat 7-Up is the best medicine there is. I really wanted a flat 7-Up, but obviously I couldn't. The doctor then gives me my vitamin K on a drip. So I'm sitting in the hospital. I'm getting worse, folks. I am getting worse. I know it. And I'm getting my vitamin K. And then the doctor says, we have a gurney for you, so go lie in that. And this is when I felt real safe. Because, I get a gurney. A gurney is like a medical bed that is on wheels and can be used for transporting patients from one area to another area of the hospital. I get on my gurney, and it's kind of like behind where all the doctors and nurses are running around and working. And I'm on my gurney. There's a gurney in front of me and a gurney behind me with different patients. And in hospital, it's kind of rough what you see. Because the dude in front of me was throwing up like every 2 minutes. And I felt so bad for him. So bad for him. It's like he looked healthy, and then he would throw up. And then he would lie down, and he would sit up, and he would throw up again. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, oh, I have a stomach pain, but I'm doing better than he is. The woman behind me was in a similar situation. But where I was really cool, because I had a view of everything. Everything. I could see everything going on in this area of the hospital. I could see all the doctors and nurses on their computers or talking to patients, consulting with each other. I could see the paramedics coming in and out with different patients. And I could just see the absolute chaos of a hospital. The absolute chaos of a hospital. It reminded me of ants or bees. Ants or bees. Do you ever see a bee hive? Or do you ever see like how bees work and they all work together, and the same with ants, and they're all doing a different job? That's kind of what it reminded me of. And I'm sitting there just people watching. It was really interesting. I'd highly recommend it, to be honest. Great experience. And I spoke to the nurse and I was like, dude, this is chaos. And he goes, it's organized chaos. And he's like, yeah, we make it work, is what he said. And it's like, you need to be able to go with the flow. And I see doctors looking for rooms to have a private conversation with a patient, and they're looking for a private room and they see one and they snag it. And then a few minutes later, someone else leaves a room and another doctor goes in there with another patient. But it's not as if you book a room and stuff like that. It's just fly by the seat of your pants. It's fascinating, folks. Absolutely fascinating to watch. And the nurse then says, do you want a painkiller? And at this stage, I'm like, yes, I do. I really, really, really want a painkiller. Like I said, I'm not a huge fan of painkillers. But now that I know I'm getting surgery, I'm like, yeah, give me a freaking painkiller. Now, before this, I had called my wife. Obviously, I had informed her. And I felt so bad because she was now on her way back to Kelowna, where we live. I felt real bad because it's her first vacation by herself in years. She'd been looking forward to it for a very long time. And here comes me with my messed up body, and I ruin her vacation. Obviously, I felt bad. Obviously, I know I shouldn't feel bad. It is what it is. Shit happens. But I still did not feel good, and I feel so bad for her, and I am going to make it up for her. I'm going to absolutely make it up to her. I have a plan for something that I want to do once I'm back to 100%. So she's on the way back to Kelowna. The nurse gives me a painkiller. And here's the thing about the painkiller. Oh boy, it was good. It was strong. It was a very strong painkiller. It was a beautiful painkiller. And the doctor, or the nurse, injects it into my IV. So this is the painkiller. Like usually you take an oral painkiller. And an oral painkiller is like a tablet or a liquid that you consume through your mouth. But this painkiller was just put straight into the bloodstream, and it kicked in rapidly. Oh boy. And as soon as the nurse finished injecting it, I think it was about 1 or 2 minutes, and I was asleep. I was knocked out. I was out for the count. And it was a glorious sleep. It was one of the best sleeps I ever did have. Remember, I was running on fumes. Great idiom. Write it down. To run on fumes. And if a person is running on fumes, they're incredibly tired and have a very, very, very small amount of energy. And so I was running on fumes, and this nurse gave me a painkiller and I was knocked out. That's how you know you're in pain. That's how you know you're sick, is when you take that little bit of medicine and you fall asleep immediately. This doctor, or this nurse, helped me sleep. I was so grateful. I woke up like an hour later and the pain was slowly coming back. Here's the thing about these painkillers. They kick in quickly, but they also go through your system pretty quickly. And I woke up because my gurney was hit by another gurney behind me. And this is a real sad part. So remember I told you about the dude in front of me who was throwing up? He has since been moved to another area of the hospital. And another person had replaced them. And it was a woman. And as long as I live, I'll never forget the noise she was making. It was really sad. She was probably in her 50s or 60s, a little bit overweight, but moaning, M-O-A-N-I-N-G, the entire time, because she was clearly in a lot of pain. And she was moaning. And they were trying to put an IV into her, but they could not get a vein. It was so sad. And every time they poked her arm, she would moan and wail a little louder. And I felt, like I said, my heart went out to her. It really, really did. Because clearly she was in so much pain. They wanted to give her meds, but first they had to get the IV in. And it took them at least 30 or 40 minutes to get it in. And several nurses and doctors all tried. And it was just, like I said, so sad to see. And I was like so thankful that I'm not in that situation. I was so lucky that I wasn't in that situation. It's all about luck, folks. And you're probably thinking, Ronan, you have a weird way to think about luck, but I'm telling you, I'm one of the luckiest motherfuckers I know. This could have been so much worse. I could have been like her. I could have been like the other dude throwing up. But for me, I just have a stomach pain and an appendicitis. And they're going to remove it. And it's a very basic surgery. They cut you open. They remove the appendix. They close you up. And like in a week or 2 weeks, you're good to go. So I'm very lucky that that's all that's wrong, right? No, there's more. We'll get there. So then eventually, actually one other thing I'll say, when I'm still in this area and I'm watching everything go down, it's so funny listening to the conversations. I'm a nosy motherfucker. I like to listen to what's going on around me. And if you're an English learner, I'd recommend you listen to what's going on around you. Great way to learn. And I'm listening to the conversations happening, and it's so funny because one moment they're talking about a patient who's very sick, and the next moment you just hear them talking about their plans for the weekend. Regular work conversation, and that's the thing. These people are working. These people are doing their jobs. They're just there chilling, and they're like, yeah, what are you at for the weekend? Oh, I'm getting some margaritas. And a bunch of nurses are just talking about where to go get margaritas. And then immediately they start talking about a patient again, and professional mode is on. And it made me understand and it really humanized the people working in the hospital. You know, I could see them for who they are. I could see them for who they are, what they're doing, and how regular they are. And the shit they put up with is also crazy. The shit those doctors and nurses have to deal with on a daily basis is just out of this world. And they really are an inspiration. I will never, ever be able to undersell nurses and doctors and healthcare workers. They're fucking heroes. They really are. Eventually, I get moved to another area of the hospital. And, you know, on my bed, and I get wheeled around, and my wife is back in town, so she calls me. I'm like, here I am. And one of my buddies actually works in the hospital, like my best friend. He works in the hospital. And he works in security, and he'd come around and check in on me every now and again. And it was real nice. It was real nice having my best friend there when my wife wasn't, and, you know, she was on the way back. But just to have someone there. And this is my friend from home. This is my best man at my wedding. This is the guy I grew up with. And we live in the same town in Canada. And I'm so lucky to have that support network in the town I'm living in. And to have that support network in the hospital. And when I was in hospital in Ireland, he visited me every day. And when I was in hospital in Canada, he visited me nearly every day. And it's just been phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. So I'm in the area. I'm getting my vitamin K. I'm getting some painkillers every now and again. I meet the surgeon, and the surgeon's like, so Ronan, tell me about your blood clots. What happened? And I'm used to telling this story. You know, I've said it quite a number of times, and I just go through the whole thing. It happened when I was 18. It happened when I was 20. Here's another thing about hospitals. Like I said, always bring a book. Be prepared to wait. Be patient. But be prepared to repeat yourself. You're always going to have to repeat yourself. Like, you're going to say something 20 times to 20 different people. And you just got to do it. You just have to do it. It does help to write it down. And I did write the timeline of events down the second time I went to hospital, because I did not want to miss anything. I did not want to undersell my symptoms at all. So please, if you're going to hospital, always write your symptoms down. I explain my situation to the doctor. We get talking about it, and he says, yeah, we're going to cut you open, but we still need your blood to be a little thinner. or a little thicker blood. So they give me more vitamin K, and it's about 9 or 10 p.m. that night. And I kind of hoping I'll get the surgery, but this is where I start to get a little pessimistic. And, I'm just sitting in a waiting room reading my book. My wife turns up, which makes me very happy. I'm over the moon. Felt a lot safer once she arrived. And about 10 or 11 p.m., the surgeon comes in and he says, unfortunately, we won't be doing the surgery tonight. We'll do the surgery first thing in the morning after a blood test. And he said the anesthesiologist doesn't feel comfortable putting me under when my blood level is the way it is. Which is fine. It's a consequence of the medicine I take. It's frustrating, but what can you do? Your hands are tied. They're not going to cut me open if it's a risk, obviously. And the anesthesiologist has a very important job. Anesthesiologist, they're the people that give you anesthesia. They're the people that put you to sleep and manage your pain when you are asleep. They're very, very detail oriented, because too much or too little anesthesia can really fuck you up. And so I'm staying in hospital overnight. There's nothing we can do. The good news is they wheel me upstairs. An orderly comes, and actually let me start that again. The good news is, because I'm not having surgery until tomorrow, I can eat. And the nurse brings me 2 sandwiches, a biscuit, some orange juice, some apple juice, and a banana, and I devoured them. Oh boy, did I eat those quickly. As soon as I was allowed to eat, I was like, give me everything. Nom, 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 nom. And I ate, and I ate, and I ate, and I ate, and it was delicious. Absolutely fantastic. So good. So goddamn good. An orderly comes around to bring me to my room. Orderly. An orderly is a person that works in a hospital that transports patients from place A to place B. They're fantastic people, lovely people, and I always have a great chat with orderlies. And he's bringing me upstairs to floor 3 surgical ward, because in the morning I'll be going for surgery. And it was really nice. He was a really cool dude. We were just chatting about living in Canada, about hiking, about going in rivers and camping and all that shit. And here's where I'm lucky. Like I said, I'm a lucky motherfucker. I had my own room. I had my own room in hospital. And that is a rare thing to have. A very rare thing to have. I was so happy that I had a private room in hospital, and I'm not out in the main ward, W-A-R-D. The main ward is the area where all the patients are on a floor. And on the main ward, there's private rooms. And thankfully, I was just lucky enough to have a private room. Otherwise, I would have been next to someone or in between other people on a bed in an open area, listening to all the noise, watching everything going down. It would have been quite distracting. And I did feel bad for other people who did not have their own room because of the shit that goes on the main ward. You see everything there. You see everything, you hear everything, you smell everything. It's not the nicest of places to be. So I am incredibly lucky to have my own room. About 11:30 p.m, I stop eating and drinking. I get more painkillers. And of course, I pass the fuck out. At this stage, my wife went home, back to the house, and is going to come back in the morning before my surgery. Yeah. Crazy time, eh? Crazy, crazy, crazy time. And that's not even with the surgery. That's just before the surgery. So let's revise some of the stuff we spoke about. On June 13th, I had stomachache. I put it down to coughing too much. On June 19th, I finally decide to go to hospital. I get discharged, sent home with a prescription for antibiotics, and they told me to come back if it gets worse. 12 hours later, I go back to hospital because it got a lot worse. I get another CT scan. I meet a really nice surgeon. A super down-to-earth, calming surgeon. So goddamn friendly. He has a gift. He really does have a gift, in my opinion. The surgeon talks to the head surgeon. They tell me they're going to take my appendix out. I'm over the moon. I'm like, yeah, get rid of them. Don't like them. Never did. Never needed them. Never wanted them. Take them. I am on a gurney. I'm watching everything go down. I see kids translating for parents. I see families of all ages. I see parents holding their kids who are in tears and crying. Oh, here's another heartwarming story, actually. A heartwarming story in the hospital. It was really sweet. There was a kid there, and the kid was really sick and was in tears, and the father's holding the kid, just trying to get her to be, brave and not cry, I guess, and just take care of her. And the nurse comes around with something behind her back, and she says, "Which color do you prefer? Green or orange?" And the girl says green. And the woman pulls a green popsicle out, like a green ice cream. The nurse did. And the girl's face lit up like a Christmas tree. An absolute Christmas tree. And it was like a really, really nice moment in the hospital where, with all the chaos going on, with all the shit going on, it was just so nice to see that kid smile and to be given an ice cream and to forget about all the pain in the world. There's something to be said for popsicles. Like, absolutely amazing. And then another nurse came around with some toys in the hospital that the kid could play with. And it really humanized everyone again. Because, you see these doctors and nurses running around, doing their jobs, saving lives. And they can take a moment to just bring an ice cream to a kid and make that kid's day. That was a really nice moment. They made the kid's day. The kid obviously felt better with the ice cream. And I like to think that ice cream cured them in my head. So I first went to hospital. I went to triage. Triage is the area you go to see a nurse, and they determine where you go after that. It's a whole process. I met the doctors. I was discharged. I got back to hospital. I presented myself the next morning with more stomach pains. Surgeon says they're going to take my appendix that night. Unfortunately, they couldn't do the surgery that night due to the complications with my blood and my medical history. So I'm staying overnight in the hospital. I have a private room. I am very, very lucky. So, that's part one, folks. That is part one of this story. And we haven't even spoken about the actual surgery and what happened after. Because I'm recording this in August. And it has taken me this long to recover. This is the first week where I'm actually feeling myself. This is the first week where I'm actually feeling energetic and I'm starting to wake up before my alarm. This is the first week I'm actually back swimming. Yeah, I love swimming. I'm obsessed with it. A year ago, I was doing long distance swims, and that was my plan this summer, was to swim a 10K race. It's not happening now. Next year it might happen. I've had to cancel all my hiking trips. I've had to cancel a lot of shit. All because of this. And in part two, I will go into more detail and tell you what exactly happened, because it is a roller coaster of a story. Thank you so much for listening. You're a rock star. Thank you for being here. Thanks for being awesome. Thanks for being amazing. And please join my Telegram group. Email me, Ronan at littlesealenglish.com. I'd love to hear from you. What can you say? Say hello. Say get well soon. Say whatever. I don't care. An email would be lovely. I would love to hear from you. And any comments, questions, queries, complaints, I'm welcome to them all. My name is Ronan. I'm so happy to be back. And I'm very excited for the future and for the rest of the year. And to tell you about part two of this crazy, crazy story. Bye for now.